Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority.
105.9 FM.
And AM 630.
WMAL.
7:37 on the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman and Brian Wilson out for the day, but we've got Matt Lewis of the Daily Caller sitting in, helping me out, getting up early. And right now we get to talk to KT McFarland, Fox News national security analyst and host of FoxNews.com's DEFCON 3. You can watch it today at 2 Wednesdays, live.foxnews.com. Good morning, KT.
Good morning.
Hey, let's start with Iran. Obviously,
Sure, why not?
Everybody worried about a possible shootout between Israel and Iran, and some analysts talking about now, if Israel were to decide, okay, we have to do this, this is the point of no return, we must attack, how Iran would retaliate and what we need to be prepared for in that situation. What would that lead to?
Well, they call it the day after attack.
Right.
If Israel decides to attack Iran's nuclear sites, they could do that, and they'll have some measure of success. They won't eliminate it completely, but they could set it back a few years. The question then becomes what happens the day after that attack when Iran retaliates. That's something Israel probably can't handle. Now, what might Iran do? There are a whole lot of different scenarios, and there's no more likelihood of one over another, but one of them is going to happen. I mean, one is that Iran could go to its allies, Hezbollah and Hamas, and all the 200,000 missiles they've got hidden away in basements, and they could say, go at it.
Right.
Start showering Israel with missiles. Now, Israel has a new air defense system, and then an Iron Dome system, it's called, to shoot those missiles down. But still, Israel would have a real barrage of incoming missiles. Another thing that the Iranians might do is say, okay, in retaliation, we figure the Americans were part of this anyway, even if they say they weren't. We're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to do what we've always threatened to do, and we're going to cut off shipping of the world's largest oil choke point. Could they do that? Yeah, they could. They could close the Strait of Hormuz. They could mine it. They could sink a supertanker. They could harass ships with their little ships. They could send missiles from their batteries on shore at any in- and outgoing tankers. But again, they can't do it for long because it would invite an American retaliation. And that's the thing from our perspective that we're more concerned with, is that whatever happens to start this war, we end up finishing it.
Right. I mean, how many, realistically, you're looking at just days after the day after American military involvement? Yeah,
all right. Now, let's say tomorrow Israel decides to attack Iran's sites. And maybe it takes them a couple of days, Iran takes a couple of days to sort of reel in and recover from it. But next week at this time, Iran starts harassing shipping going in and out of the Gulf and even tries to shut it down. What happens then? Who tries to open up the Gulf? Well, the United States Navy is the only one that's really there to do it. So 2 weeks from today, we could see a U.S.-Iranian military engagement in the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, and in the Strait of Hormuz, they're sort of asking to be crushed. I mean, they can't, like you said, they can't do it for long. We're going down the path further. What happens after that? I mean, we would take
this is where everybody disagrees.
Right.
I mean, I've talked to some military people, some Navy guys who say, sure, Iran could do it, but the Fifth Fleet's right there. We'll clean it out in a week.
Right.
I've talked to other people who said, from former military officials, including the former head of CENTCOM, who said, we war gamed that, and it's not going to take a week. It's going to take months, and we would have to ultimately put U.S. ground troops in Iran along that border, along the Persian Gulf coastline to take out the Iranian missile batteries. So I don't know. You know, I think if you've got two really good military experts, one says it's no problem, we'll do it in a week, and another one who says a bigger problem than you think, it'll take a matter of months. Whatever it is, it's going to interfere with shipping, getting oil out of the Persian Gulf into the rest of the world. It's going to shoot oil prices through the roof. It's going to mean that you and I, when we go to the gas station to tank up, are going to faint before we have to hand over our credit cards. And it's going to have a real detrimental effect to the world economy. All that's horrible. But maybe more horrible is Iran getting nuclear weapons.
Now, KT, we talked to our audience yesterday, a lot of military folks out there who depend on TRICARE, about in Obama's budget, it appears that he is willing to do to active duty and retired military what he is totally unwilling to do to any union workers, public employee workers in the nation, which is ask them to pay a whole lot more for their health care. We're talking about 300% increases in some cases. What do you make of that? Of course, it takes an act of Congress to get that passed, but this is his budget. What does that say about this?
I've got to tell you, I'm critical on policy grounds of the administration. I've praised them for other things. To me, this is just, somehow it's violating his oath of office. The deal we have is we have civilian control of the military. We have the most powerful military in the world, and we have civilian leaders who can give the orders to the military. The military will do whatever our civilian leaders tell them to do. But the unwritten assumption is that our political leaders care for our military. Going back to Abraham Lincoln saying that we have the duty to care for the wounded and the widows and the orphans of our men and women who have died in service of their country. And what's President Obama doing? He goes to the State of the Union, and he must say U.S. Navy SEALs every other word.
Right.
As if, I'm going to run for re-election, and I'm going to be re-elected because of the U.S. Navy SEALs. They're my own guys. And then once he leaves that podium and goes behind closed doors, he takes out the knife and starts pounding it into the heart of the United States military. When I came in the Reagan administration, it was after a similar period of significant defense cutbacks. Vietnam was an unpopular war. After Vietnam, we took it out on the military. We cut their pay and benefits. When we came in the 1980s with the Reagan administration, we were horrified by what we found.
Right.
We had ships that couldn't sail because they didn't have fuel. We had planes that couldn't fly because pilots lacked the training hours to be certified. We had tanks. For every tank that worked, there was one sitting right next to it that was cannibalized for spare parts. But the most shameful thing of all was that we had cut the benefits of our Vietnam vets. So we had Vietnam vets who needed medical and mental health care, and they were not getting it because we had denied it to them. And we found junior enlisted men and women who were so poorly paid that they qualified for food stamps. What are we doing now? We're going down that same road. And I think it's unconscionable as a nation. I mean, it is a stain on our soul. If we let our American men and women come back from battle, wounded warriors, and we say to them, thanks very much, but too bad.
Yeah.
You're not a big enough voting bloc.
So
You're
much
not
for
in
the
right
promises.
Camp of voting blocs. We can do it, and we're going to do it, and we're going to cut your health care. We're going to cut your mental health care, and too bad if you don't like it.
Well,
I find that just a breach of a sacred trust that the president